Welcome to Investories, a podcast about real stories, real estate, and taking real action. Join hosts John Hooper and Kyle Robertson as they talk investing, mindset, and taking that first step. We all have a story. What's yours? The Investories Podcast.
Welcome to the Investories podcast. Booyah! It's me, John Hooper. Kyle is still traveling, hopefully back next week. I seem to say that every single week, but hey, there you go. Today, super excited to introduce and to welcome Brian Beers to the show. He has a podcast called Business with Beers. It's all about entrepreneurship, and there's a little bit of seller financing to what he does as well. And he's invested in real estate, he's building a coaching business, and he's a super busy man. So not only are we thankful for his time, but really he breaks down kind of the processes and systems that's helped him get to where he's got to. So his family owns auto repair shops, started with one, and now they're at 30, and that's been a big part of his life, is kind of absorbing and understanding that business and then growing that business and figuring out the systems and processes and how to hire the right people and how to offload things you don't want to do or need to do and all that good stuff. We also have quite a long talk around franchising in general and how you can go and find a business and turn it into a franchise or franchise it, become a franchisee. And he's got a real passion, real love for business, but also a real passion for helping people and helping people grow, and getting people that really want to work and want to be better and be growing businesses and all that good stuff. And as I said, we do a deep dive into the seller financing of a business and how to identify potential seller financing options and how to reach out, connect, pitch, run the numbers, all that good stuff. And finally, he really talks in detail around mindset and around finding that kind of expertise and that drive and that passion and honing those skills and bringing that all together to become a successful entrepreneur. So it's a really great listen. And just before we start and before we dive into the interview, please do give us a 5-star review and help us boost up through the algorithm. And secondly, please share with a friend if you think this is good. If you like our content, please do try and help us get the word out. We're growing steadily, we're growing slowly. We could do with all the help we could get. So anyway, I'll save the pitch till next week. But without further ado, here's Brian. Welcome to Investories, Brian Beers. Hi, Brian.
Hey, John. Well, thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of share my story with the audience and, go from there.
Thank you so much, Brian. And where are you based?
Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. So you're East Coast. Is it winter yet, or is it autumn?
No, it's been nice. It's still summer. It's like 80s, 90s. Yeah, it's nice.
I'm a Brit, so I have to always talk about the weather. It's my duty.
There you go.
So Brian, we connected on Facebook, and you've put a lot of great content out into a few of the groups I'm in, and it's really interesting to see, mainly through the podcasting space. So check out Brian's podcast, Business with Beers, which I really like the name. Kind of made me envious of your surname, if I'm honest. It's kind of cool. How did you get started? What's your route into kind of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I mean, my family's been in the franchising business as a franchisee since 1976. So I kind of grew up in it. My dad was an entrepreneur. We own automotive repair shops, and he grew it from one location to as many as 8 to 9. Open, sold, transfer, that kind of thing. And then I grew up working in stores. I kind of grew up kind of around that. And I always just loved business. I worked as soon as I could. I worked in the stores. I also worked in a music shop. I worked. I got into computers. I worked as like a software developer, website developer, and just always liked making money, always liked learning about business. And like, for me, that's like what's fun. So I always had that drive and that interest in it.
And so that's really interesting. And I think that kind of connection, that familial connection of like being
brought into something and kind of being part of your DNA or part of your upbringing is really interesting. How did that work? Were you aware of the going from one shop to 9 shops and the journey that took?
A little bit as a kid, not really. I didn't really know much about it. I know my dad was like active in the business. He worked, long hours. He'd go on trips to, the conferences, and we'd come along with some of them to like Las Vegas and some things like that. So I knew, I knew like bits and pieces of it, but I didn't really know all that much until I was probably a teenager. Then I worked in the stores and learned more about like, what it took to run the business.
I think that's really interesting because that absorption when you're a kid. So like my dad didn't own his businesses. It didn't own businesses. He owned, he managed teams and managed a corporate environment. So I went into offices as a kid, and I'd go and scroll on the whiteboards and not really know what anything was, and not really know who Bob was, who was like senior director of X or Y. And it was kind of interesting to then, when I work in the corporate space now, I can kind of drop into that world really easily and kind of have that in to talk to people. So that kind of indoctrination maybe, or absorption is kind of interesting. So in terms of recognizing kind of your route and taking from those formative years, what did that look like? What was your kind of college and then post college into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So then I went to, I originally wanted to get into the music business. I played guitar, I had a band, I was in all that stuff. And then I realized like, it's really hard to make money as a musician. But a lot of people make money like running the business, right? Publishing, recording, like there's this whole other world that money's made. So anyhow, I originally wanted to go down that path. I ended up going to University of Miami in Florida because they had a music business school in addition to like it's part of the entrepreneurship school. And that was the original goal. And then I went down there, and then I ended up just studying entrepreneurship and actually computer science, and I kind of didn't do the music thing. And I worked down there in various jobs. And then after college, I decided to come back and join the family business. And, it had been like 2010. So like 08, 09 was a little rough. And my dad and uncle were tired and thinking about selling and just kind of like getting out of the business because, it wasn't fun anymore for them. And so I joined the business. I knew nothing about it. I learned as much as I can. I attend like masterminds with other franchisees. I read books and just start trying to implement ideas, and I breathe life into the business, and then good things started happening.
No, that's awesome. And what did that look like? I guess was there any kind of conflict's a strong word. Was there a difference of viewpoint in terms of coming in to support?
The family was very supportive of it. Obviously they, business wasn't great, so they were like looking for new ideas too, right? And a lot of things I would do, and you make small tweaks, and it's like, hey, we're using Google Sheets now to start tracking sales every day, or KPI, whatever the KPIs are. We're looking to shift pay plans to focus more on gross profit versus just sales. Or like, you start to make some small changes, but significant over time. And then a lot of it was filtering. Like I'd help filter, bring in the new people, and I wanted people that had a certain culture and fit the kind of the mold that I was looking for, which were people that were driven, and they were like, they want to win, and they're big team players, and they're happy people, like they're positive people and things like that. And so a lot of it was just kind of morphed over time. Plus we had success, and the more success you have, it starts to compound too. So
no, I really like that. And I think one of the biggest kind of lessons I learned in kind of running point on teams is figuring out fit and culture fit, and where do people fit in, and what do people like doing, because there's nothing worse than someone who's awesome but in completely the wrong role and bored out of their minds, or just kind of underutilized and all that stuff. So that's really, really interesting. In terms of that move or those kind of lessons, what were the biggest kind of takeaways or lessons or things
the biggest ones is to learn from other people. Like for me, I was like 22 years old or whatever. I knew literally nothing about cars. I literally knew nothing about business besides, you learn in college, but like what you can learn in a book is way different than, real life application. And so, I intentionally got into the room of other successful franchisees. You learn, that there's a mastermind group, and we didn't call it that back then, but like, a group that met, in Dallas once a quarter of 20 successful franchisees for a couple of days to talk about best practices. Right. And so I get myself invited to this thing. I go there, I add value, I make friends, I I contribute, things that are working for us. I, am a sponge and take ideas that's working for other people, and I go back, I implement. You go back a couple months later, and you do it again, right? And like, so it's like not being able to afraid to like get yourself in the room, not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to try things. I think some people kind of get stuck in the old way, and we do it this way because that's the way we've always done it, but not because that's the best way or the way we should be doing it. And so I think that's a big lesson that I learned. And now I'm like, I'm happy to contribute back and share with other people, because I know, like, if I was in their shoes, that'd be meaningful for me. So
yeah, and you provide education, right, and kind of mentoring, those kind of elements. What does that business look like now?
Well, there's a couple different things. I mean, within the brand, so we're, I guess for some context, so as of today, now we have 30 locations. So we've grown from 6 to 30, primarily through acquisitions of existing locations. And so, we're one of the larger ones in the system. And so a couple things we've done along the way is, one is, within the system that we currently live in, I, have hosted live Zoom calls where I'll just get, 50, 60, 70 franchisees from around the country on a call, and just interview a successful franchisee, or share best practices, or just do something that adds value and that helps others grow. And because I know that helps them grow, that helps me learn. Like, I was learning just as much as they were learning from listening to everybody. So I do things like that. And I think, that's something that's totally free. Anybody could do it in whatever business they are in, right? Just, it's like a mastermind. Just get a whole bunch of people together who have similar interests, and you just help each other. And so that's that. And then separate from that, I am working on teaching other franchisees how they can basically execute the plan we've done, which is, how do you roll up franchises? Like, how do you identify a brand? How do you, buy these things? How do you operate them? And so that's a lot what I talk about on Twitter, and a little bit on my podcast, but a lot more on Twitter. And that's what I'm working on, ultimately creating some training around is that, because I think there's a ton of wealth can be created as a franchisee by going in, identifying like a legacy business owned by a legacy owner who wants out, and it's like super boring, like auto repair or whatever it is. And you just go in there and you just add some technology, add some culture, add some energy, and boom, like, you can have some really good results. So
I like that, and I'm not sure whether you might be able to talk to this. Depends on your kind of real estate experience, but it sounds like you're pitching in a similar way to seller financing, right? Which is,
oh yeah,
you're solving a problem.
Yeah, majority of my 24 of my 30 locations I bought with seller financing. Almost all of them. I mean, we're talking $120,000 deals, $200,000 deals, $1 million deals, $2 million deals, all bought seller financing with businesses. A lot of people know about real estate, but you can apply the same principles to buying a business. In real estate, I'm pretty well versed. We went through a time there flipping houses and rentals, and I own a number of our properties. I've invested in 7 syndications. So I'm well versed, and yeah, it's awesome. You can apply it to seller financing to anything. It's just the seller becomes the bank. I mean, it's the simplest format. So,
and I really like that. I like the idea of that, both the financial element though, and also then the pitching of a business. Like, hey, you're at this stage in your life or in your journey as a business owner. I have a solution to your problem that you're probably asking yourself on a daily basis, which is, how long can I keep doing this?
Yeah, to be successful in any business, or whether it's business or real estate, doesn't matter. Like, you want to be the easy button, like that they work with you, and it's just easy to work with you. You're easy to communicate, like you're organized, like you don't drag on, you don't have to like, send the same documents multiple times, you don't try to retrade, all this stuff. So like, that's our reputation, that's our track record. Is if someone wants to sell their store and it's within our region, like, we're the go-to person, just because it's just easy to do business with us, versus like other people I know, it's very difficult, and they got all these attorneys, and they want all these, like, they have all these demands, and they are just irrational people to deal with. And it's like, you work with that or you can work with us. It's up to you. So anyway, that same for business. Like, same for real estate. Like, you can totally have that can be your thing, and that can be part of your pitch. Is you just, even if they don't know you, you just tell them that, hey, we're the easy button. I've done X amount of deals, and I get these deals because, we close quickly, we're reliable, we're organized, I have a great team, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can just list it out. So
yeah, I love that. And I think being firm but easy to work with is a great kind of place to be in business and in real estate for certain. We've done a transaction where the seller was kind of problematic, but by being firm but fair and kind of open, it kind of resolved pretty well. So
Yep.
I like that a lot. In terms of that process, so you identify a business, or you see something where maybe it's not quite for sale. What does that look like from kind of identification to kind of actually closing it?
Yeah, I mean, of all the locations we've bought, only and or the businesses, only one of them was listed with a broker. So like a lot of businesses are for sale and a lot of real estate is for sale, but you don't know if you don't ask. And so our approach is outreach. Like for us, we've identified who are the owners of like the businesses, or if it's real estate, you just be looking at who's the owners of these real estates, of these properties I want. You just call them and talk to them and just tell them, hey, look, and we're looking to grow in the market. If you may not be interested in selling now, but when you are, please think of us. Like we have X, Y, and Z track record, blah, blah, blah. Like, and you kind of go through it. And that's like, that is what we've done. So my recommendation is using some sort of, like, we call it a deal tracker, my brother and I. So we just have this thing that's just every potential deal, whether it's a piece of real estate we want to buy or a business we want to buy, or like whatever we're doing. And we use ClickUp, but you could use Excel or whatever, a Word doc. But then basically we track it, our all of our communications. Hey, I talked to this guy on this date. I talked to this guy on this date. This is what he said. And I mean, there's ones where, it's been 3 years of communication and then eventually it pops up. Or, it's been 12 months since we talked to a guy. And last time he told us, he said, I'm not, hell would have to freeze over before I sell you a location. 12 months later, we follow up, he sells us the location. So like a lot of it, when you're on the hunt to find these things is, you're organized with a list of deals, and then you're consistent in your follow up, and you take good notes. And I mean, even today, I looked at buying a piece of real estate. We made an offer over 3 years ago. We made an offer. It's still on the market. The price has been reduced. I'm like, just like redoing the same offer and just changing the dates and sending it again, because now the guy's like starting to come down in price from his unrealistic first ask. But anyhow, that's it. It all applies no matter what you're doing.
And that's when you're at the top of the market, I think, when people are swinging for the fences in terms of a number, and then they start to think a little differently and have to start kind of dropping down on that. So that's really interesting. In terms of getting that piece right. So you found a business, you really like it, you want to incorporate it, or you want to buy it and bring it into your model. And how do you run the numbers on a business versus a piece of real estate? Like, what does the underwriting look like?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, it's because it's a franchise, we have similar costs in every location, right? We have similar overhead. The rent and the property taxes are kind of variable, but our cost of goods is going to be similar. Our payroll is going to be similar. And so really we kind of just, we kind of take what the sales are, and then what our numbers would be with those sales, right? I don't even get their P&Ls. I don't get tax returns. I really don't care, because whatever they're paying for phone contracts and health insurance, none of that matters to me, because it's good to be whatever I'm paying. And so we'll take it. We determine a valuation. If it's profitable, it's somewhere around 2.5 to 3 times what the cash flow is. So I mean, that's the benefit of buying a business is, if it's making $100,000 a year, you can buy it for 250 to 300. Real estate, you're going to be paying whatever a 7 cap or whatever it is these days, which is like going to be 15 times or whatever it is. So, the multiples are much better. So, we say, all right, this thing's worth $250,000. We're going to go and do a seller finance deal where we're going to offer, I don't know, $25,000, $50,000 down and like $2,000 or $3,000 a month for X amount of months. Like that's how we're going to structure it. Down payment, monthly payment, number of months. And then we just look at it and say, hey, can the business, like, health, no problem, support the debt payment? And if they can, that's how we start. And so, and then we negotiate from there. Down payment, monthly payment, number of months to get the owner finance deal. And then we back into the purchase price, we back into an interest rate, and then we iron out all the other stuff around it. So that's usually how we do it. Unless it's not profitable, then we're just paying like asset value, which is whatever, $150,000.
Got it. Do you have a target kind of debt service that you wouldn't go beyond, or a rule of thumb?
Yeah, it's like, yes, it would be roughly 30% of the cash flow. Like if it's making $100,000, I really don't want to be over $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year, something like that.
Got it.
But it really depends on us and where it's at. Like if we think it's a really good location, it's just like poor execution, we might be willing to pay a little bit more because we know we're going to get it, versus like a location that we might think is kind of like it is what it is at where it's at. We're going to want to be a little bit more conservative on those deals.
That's really interesting, and I think there's a lot that there's a lot of box ticking for the seller financing piece of real estate, and making sure your numbers work and you're not too upside down if it's so desirable, or not upside down at all if you don't think there's much kind of movement in terms of income. So that's really interesting. In terms of, and this is probably where a lot of people get stuck in terms of seller financing, in terms of pitching to a seller, what does that look like? What's your kind of approach?
Sure. Yeah, I had a call the other day pitching. I do it all the time. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So my recommendation is to practice, but it's the simplest terms. I just tell them, listen, this is how we buy stores, right? So I lay it out. This is how we do it. This is how we buy real estate, whatever. This is how we buy businesses, which you as the seller become the bank. So instead of us going to another bank and paying them principal, getting a loan and paying principal and interest, you're going to loan us the money and we're going to pay the principal and interest to you every month, in addition to, a down payment. You are going to have personal guarantees. You're going to have, we're going to put up collateral to secure the loan, whether it's, if it's real estate, obviously it's the mortgage, or, in a business, it's going to be the assets of the business. It's going to be a corporate guarantee of, basically the income from maybe other locations. It's going to help support it. And for them, the benefits, why they do it, they get to defer capital gains, so that the big tax bill they'd get from selling their business all in 1 year, they get to spread it out over, the length of the loan, whether it's 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is. They're also going to get monthly payments and cash flow, which is kind of what they're used to getting, right, as a business owner. They are going to get interest income that we'd be paying to the bank. Instead, we're going to pay to them. And a lot of times that interest payment, that additional cash is going to cover a big chunk of their tax bill that they're going to have. So it kind of washes it out. And then finally, I forget the last one, but those are the big ones. And that's what I pitch. And honestly, it works almost every time.
And I'm thinking probably earlier on in this process, have you ever had kind of friction from a seller that's kind of runs you out of town?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, no, I've pretty much gotten every time. So it's a little bit easier in a because we're in a franchise system. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows me, like, because I'm active in it. I'm on podcasts. I'm on Twitter. Right. So like that's part of, like, if you're trying, like, that's the value of a personal brand. Like, is if you get out there and if you post, you talk about how you think, like, people listen to you. They get to hear you every week or read your stuff every month, or however frequent you are. And then they get to know you, they get to like you, they get to trust you. They seem to know what you're talking about, and they want to do a deal with you because you're checking all the boxes. You're not some rando who's just like throwing a deal at them. Like, they see you're legit. And so anyway, that's all part of personal brand and podcasting. I'm sure you know that, but for anybody like looking to get into it, that's like a great way to get started. And so anyhow, that's and the final thing is, what are they going to do with the money? So I buy this thing, I give the guy $500,000. Like, you go to the bank, I get the loan, I give him the money. Like, what's he going to do with it? If he's just going to invest in the stock market, like, which is like such a roller coaster ride. I mean, we look this week with inflation numbers coming out, like it's tanking. It has the worst day in years the other day. And so, like, I usually instow some fear about that with them, right? Which is like, they're going to put it in bonds, and even the bond market's like all over the place, or they're just going to stick it as cash, and then what? It's going to earn nothing. Like, they loan the money to me, they're going to get some interest on it. And so if they don't have a good use for the money, it makes sense for them to keep it with you, defer the taxes, and earn interest on it.
No, I really like that. And I think the other one is, and I'm doing some seller financing work around kind of absentee landlords that may want to sell. And what's really interesting is kind of those things like rents, medical bills, retiring. Would you like a predictable number to come into your bank on the first every single month, but not through your property, and not just get hit by that capital gains burden, which can be pretty expensive.
It's also like two different ways on price. One is the business, or it's not profitable, and you couldn't get a loan on it. Sometimes that's happened to me, where the business we were buying was not profitable, and like zero chance of getting a loan. And so they want to sell it. Like, it is the only way is owner financing, unless someone's going to come up with a whole bunch of cash to buy an unprofitable business, which is unlikely. Or there's the opposite spectrum of that, which is they want more money than the bank would approve, or they want a higher price for the real estate than what the appraisal would come in at. The difference is they could finance the whole deal and give you like a below market interest rate, and like you're paying a higher price, but if the terms work from a cash flow perspective, then you don't really care about the price, because like we're looking at what's the down payment, what's the monthly payment, can the business support this? Then we're just paying down debt. And then, a couple of years later, we get the thing refinanced. They're off the hook, and it's all good. So there's a couple different ways of where it makes sense.
And I guess the other thing about that loan aspect of kind of them trying to take money out of the business is they're still then in the business. So if as a retirement strategy, the seller financing thing makes a lot more sense for people trying to get out of the day-to-day working piece of it.
Yep. So yeah, it's great opportunity.
So we talked a bit about scale. So growing to so many shops, 30 locations. What did you do to kind of build a team around that, or build the processes, systems, and people to get to that level?
So I mean, to start, I guess I want to touch maybe on the mindset first of how you get there before Absolutely. You kind of get to building the team. Because for us, it was like all of our locations were in 15 minutes of each other, kind of the Philadelphia area. And I believed that our success was because we were local, right? And because I was in the stores every day, we were successful because we were hands-on operators. And I had this concern and this fear that, hey, we go into a new market that's like, not local, that we are not going to be successful because we're not hands-on. And that's how my dad built it. That's how I had success, right? And that's the future. And so, that kept me back from growing for years. I have this limiting belief that we could only operate stores within, driving distance or in this short radius because of the hands-on aspect. And so what I later determined was like, that is not, that's the reason, but like we can duplicate that. Like I can find people, like in this case, it's our district managers who kind of run, groups of stores who take over that role. So instead of me as the owner, like I'm going to duplicate me and find people who are going to be in the stores every single day. They're going to follow the process that we want done. They're going to hold people accountable. They're going to set the goals, right? They're going to solve problems, all that stuff. And so once I got over that mindset shift, that it doesn't have to be me, I just need to find someone who can, do 80% of me or whatever, that then we can start stamping them out. And so once that trigger was set, that's how we were able to grow from 12 to 30 in 14 months, is because we said, hey, let's go ahead and we can do it in Jersey. And if we can do it in Jersey, we can do it in another market. And now that we have 3 markets, I'm looking at, hey, can we go to, can we do it as a plane ride away? If we do it in a plane ride away, then we can go anywhere in the country. And so, growth is like this stair step approach in anything you do, where it's like you do all this work, you get to this point, and then like if you can operate 2, you can operate 4. If you can operate 4, you can probably do 8. If you have 8, you can do 15. If you can do 15, you can figure out 30. So once I figure out 30, I'm pretty sure I could do 50. And after 50, I'm pretty sure I could do 100, right? It's like at those, like you don't know what it takes to get there, but then once you're there, you figure it out. And then all those new learnings you can apply that get you to the next level. If you want, if you want to grow and if you want that. And I think that's the big one, is a lot of people, like they look at this big goal and they think it's too much. And it's like, oh, how do I get there? I don't know how to operate. Like I have two things. How do I get to 100? I have no idea. Like, but you don't worry about that. You worry about like, how do I just get to 4 locations, or how do I get to 4, properties that I own? It's like, I can figure out that. I'm just going to duplicate what I did. And then you're 4, like, how do I get to 8? And like, then at 8, like you learned a bunch of things on the way that make the next 4, 8, or 16 a lot easier to handle. And so that's been a big one for me of learnings. It's just, breaking it down to kind of these bite-sized things. Just focus on doubling. And if you can focus on doubling, then, you can exponential growth. So that was how I start. That's the mindset shift I had that kind of got us to where we're at today.
That's great. I really appreciate that. And I think I'm certainly guilty of that. I see a target and be like, oh, I want to be over there. And it's not that simple. It's worth breaking down the kind of incremental steps and absorbing those lessons along the way. In terms of then recruiting and kind of screening, and I guess I put a spin on this in terms of I've recruited people for managing short-term rental or cleaning and meeting and greeting, all that kind of stuff. And those kind of pieces of building your team. What do you look for in kind of people?
Yeah, so like, we fix cars and we're in franchising, but at the end of the day, we're in the people business. Like, we have people that communicate to customers. We have people that communicate to our teams. We have people that fix cars, right, and communicate back. Like, we're in the people business. We're in the communication business. It's almost every business is the same. So whether they're managing short-term rentals or cleaning, or it doesn't matter. We're all in the people business. If we're in retail and sales. And so, for us, then it's like, all right, how do we analyze people then? What's our people analyzer look like? And, we followed Traction for a while. So some of these ideas are from like Traction or EOS, but, you identify like, what are your core values? Like, as a person, like, what do you look for? And the theory being, as a person, core values don't really change. Like, you kind of are who you are. And so for us, you go through this exercise. You say, all right, well, who are our best people and what are the traits that they have that are similar? And so for us, we want people that are driven, right? We want people who want to win. They're not do anything to win, but they really want to win. They're competitive. They want to have success. So we look for that. We look for people who have a super high level of integrity. Like, they always do the right thing. If they have to question whether it's the right or wrong thing, it's not the right, it's not the right thing to do. Especially in, automotive space, obviously there's like some trust issues. So like, super high level integrity is like super important to us. We want people who have a high level of accountability. So they do what they say they're going to do. Like, simple as that. You tell me you're going to get the shop clean. You tell me you're going to do this, or you're going to show up. Like, you do it. And if you don't do it, you take ownership. You don't blame anybody else. You don't play the victim card. You don't like blame the economy, the weather, or like all this other stuff. Like, you take ownership and you apologize, and you are going to correct it going forward. Right. And then finally, we want people who are positive, right? They're fun to be around, who they make you, they pick up the phone and they're smiling. They don't sound like they just like got out of bed. Like, and then they want to build a team. They want to help each other. Like, they want to grow their people, like all that's just be in this positive, fun environment. And so anyway, those are the 4 core values of the people that we want to surround ourselves with. And so you go through this process to say, for each person on your team, like, do they exhibit drive, integrity, positivity and accountability? Do they do it 80% of the time? Are they 50-50, or is it 20% or less? And so you grade your people. And then for anybody who's like, not positive, or then they're not, they don't have a high level integrity, or we're having issues, or, they don't seem to be driven by anything, like those people, then we look to either you coach them first and then, give them a shot to get on the right path. And if not, you look to replace, and they can then find a better job that fits their core values, which don't align with ours. And so the better you can get at identifying that, where your core talents are, and then your ability to identify within your applicants and your existing staff and coach them and make changes, the more success you'll have.
And that's really interesting. That's been a professional and personal kind of journey for me, which is understanding those principles. There's a book called Radical Candor, which is all about culture fit and people being in the right place. And not being afraid to have those conversations. So I really, really like that forthrightedness that you guys kind of operate in that space. Thinking of you're a super busy guy. Thinking of the rest of your kind of endeavors and across different businesses and different opportunities. A theme that we talk about a lot here is virtual assistants. How does kind of your methods or your recruitment and management overlay to kind of using VAs?
Yeah, so we have a significant team of virtual assistants. We're still learning it. It's not perfect. Part of it is figuring out how to manage a remote team, right? It's different, and especially when you have multiple people. So like in our office space, we have a local CFO and somebody who does bill pay. Has been with us for a very long time. So those are our only 2 in-person people. And then we have a team of roughly 6 to 8 in the Philippines who kind of run the office. So we have a controller, we have other people to do accounts payable, they do accounts receivable, they do like the entries, they're contacting vendors, they're setting up accounts. I mean, they work full-time for us, on US hours. And so we're still learning the best way to do it. A lot of we're using ClickUp primarily for task management and assigning, and trying to increase. I think what we've learned is you have to increase the frequency of your communication. So like whether it's a daily check-in or 2 times a day, or it's like open chat, like, it's the more you communicate, the more you kind of keep in contact, I think the better. And so that's what our team looks like. We're still figuring it all out, but once we do, it becomes easier to scale, right? We add 6 more locations. We just need to hire 1 more person to help with bill pay, and it kind of builds it out. I mean, I have 2 people that work for me, kind of for my personal brand. They help with the podcast production, all make all the YouTube videos and all the reels and all the actually getting me on podcasts. I think I've been on, or I've got invited to, I don't know, 5 or 6 that they're the ones doing the outreach, on my behalf. And so they help with that aspect of it. And then even we're trying like call center, we're trying to do our own call center and appointment confirmation for the stores. And I don't know, we're open to trying new things all the time. And so, we'll try something. If it works, great. And if it doesn't, like, we just go in a different direction. But leveraging virtual assistants is like a huge part of it.
That's so cool, and that's something I've been exploring. And it's a scary world to kind of just pull the trigger, but I like that. That's a good tip. Experiment and see what happens, and see if it works.
I mean, I hear that all the time, but like, I mean, knock on wood, I've never had an issue. I mean, because you think about it, you can really lock down like bank account stuff. So like like a whole bunch of our people in the Philippines have access to our banks, but like, it's read-only access. There's not much they can do. Like, you can't transfer money. All they can do is just like see the numbers, and then they can reconcile between statements and stuff. And, we have select people who have credit cards who can pay bills, but like, I mean, we've been doing this for years. We've never had a single issue. And so, anyhow,
I think I hear that all the time, is control.
Control. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Yeah. You put checks and balances in place, and like a lot of it's communication, and like, but then it's like control for what? And like what? Then you think of the tasks. Like I go through this exercise, and it's like, is it urgent and important? Like you do the little do, delegate, delete, delay, and a lot of the tasks that like we as entrepreneurs like do, like they have low value, and like low to no value tasks versus like the highest value tasks that we could be doing. And so the better we can get like through time management and identifying what are these low value tasks, and is there somebody I can hand them off to, and then spend more time on like your money making tasks, which could be, maybe it's finding deals, or maybe it's not. Maybe finding deals you can give to somebody else, and like you're like underwriting the deals, you're negotiating the deals, you're creating relationships, you're creating your personal brand, like you're doing the things that only you can do. Those have the highest returns versus like, I don't know, even stuff I do, like some email management. I would like to give email away. I just don't know how to do it yet. Or like outreach to podcasts, or I mean, don't tell anybody this, but I have my VAs wish people happy birthday on Facebook on my behalf. So like, it comes up as a reminder. So every single friend, I wish them happy birthday at 2 a.m. Eastern time. It's, it's one of my,
no, it's fine.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's pretty funny, but anyhow, but that's all like part of it. And anyway, so
one of the things I wanted to find out is kind of, so what's next? What's next for both your personal brand and the business?
Yeah, so the business, we're going to keep growing. We're going to grow within our current market through acquisitions. We're looking potentially at some new markets to say how do we grow beyond our current footprint. And my personal brand. I mean, I have the podcast business with beers that I have close to 100 episodes now, and it's been a lot of fun. And I've made a lot of friends with a lot of the guests who've kind of been on, and hearing their stories. I've invested money with people who've been on my podcast into their deals, and so that's all been fun. And I'm working on ultimately teaching other people how to do this franchise roll up thing. So I think there's a huge opportunity of, all these people wanting to retire and get out, and there's just going to be a huge transfer of wealth, and 10% of it's franchises. And, I'm going to be the person to help teach other people how to do it. And a lot of it is just teaching them what I'm currently doing already. Like, so I don't view it like it's a separate thing, but at the end of the day, I'm just taking what I'm learning in my business and just figuring out how do I package this up and how do I teach this principle that I just learned or that I implemented to other people who are on the same journey.
No, I think that's great, and I love the giving back, to the community, and you're very active in that sense. Maybe it's your virtual assistants that are very active. So
no,
kudos.
I'm a lot of it. Just happy birthdays. I think it's funny.
So in terms of people wanting to get into this space and taking that first step, what do you have kind of a one piece of advice, one action that they can take to start?
Yeah, I mean, with anything, it comes down to goals, like some goal setting of like trying to really identify what specifically you want, and then why do you want it? Like those are the two big ones. What do you want, and then why do you want it? And sometimes we think like, I don't know, for in real estate, we went down the path of thinking, hey, we wanted to own a bunch of rentals. We decided we wanted to get into like the low income space. So we were buying these homes for like $50,000 to $75,000, whatever it was, cash deals, and like that's what we thought we wanted. But then when we got into it, it was terrible. Like, rent collection issues, Section 8 issues, like repair and maintenance issues. And like at the end of the day, like the why is, you want this passive income, you want to build this portfolio, and you want like, time freedom. But at the end of the day, like we weren't achieving that at all through this because these were, high maintenance and high touch, and like it wasn't at all. And so a lot of it is like really identify what you want, and then making sure the goal, the thing you're looking to achieve is actually going to like help like achieve or aligns with that goal. So at the end of the day, high maintenance, low income housing does not generally align with like time freedom and stuff. And so anyhow, that would be my first or my best advice, is really getting clear on what you want and making sure it aligns with it. And then it's just like taking action, like doing the things that other people's won't is what makes the difference. Whether that is, it's cold outreach, or it's attending, local meetups and masterminds, and getting to know other people, and just trying to figure out like how you can add value as much as you can. Whether it's, if you got no real estate, and you got no money, and you got no connections, like you got to start with one of them. So start with the connections. And so go to the meetups, meet the people, like volunteer for free to help them, like just show you want value. Like if someone came to me and they like volunteer free to do a bunch of stuff, and if I liked them and they were friendly, and like I wouldn't mind being around them, and they listen to me, like, and they do what I tell them to do, like I'd have no problem, mentoring somebody like that. And so, and a lot of successful people want to help other people, like, because other successful people help them, right? So there's this reciprocal feeling out there. And so I think it's just getting out there and just taking the actions that others won't. And that's, ultimately how you can help live a life that others don't.
No, I really like that. And I echo that. Speaking to so many people in real estate, there's enough to go around, I feel. And most successful real estate investors know that, and are happy to kind of bring people into the club, or into the kind of secret society of, hey, this is really cool. You can invest.
And in franchising, like if they want to go down the business path and the franchising path, there's tons of like low cost franchises out there, whether it's like a lot of them are service based, like, carpet cleaning or gutter cleaning, or like things like that. They're mobile businesses. They own like a territory. A lot of them are owned potentially by people that treat them as side hustles. So they're like had a W-2 job, and they bought this thing, and they thought it would be easy. And then it turns out it's not easy. They're not making any money. It's creating all this headaches. And they just like, if someone came along and like wanted to take it off their hands, they would totally sell it, probably for like cost, like, and they'd probably own or finance it, or they probably like just give it to you away for free if they just don't want to deal with it anymore. Like, and so that would be the other path, is you just find something like that in your local area, and then you just start reaching out to franchisees. You start talking to them, tell them you're interested in learning about the business, and like you never know where it could go. And then even within that, you could then grow it, right? You can buy up the other territories, and maybe you could sell the whole business and move on to the next biggest thing. Like there's lots of different ways you can go, but a lot of it's just taking action and not getting out from behind your computer.
No, I like that. Thank you so much, Brian. And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so a number of different ways. So I have a podcast, Business with Beers, as you had mentioned. So if they like the things I talk about, they can find me there. I'm pretty active on Twitter. Brian Beers is my handle, BRIAN. And they can go to my website, brianbeers.com. I have a newsletter that I put out talking about, kind of building, passive income streams. I talk about investing, talk about some real estate, just, trying to build a business. And then once you make it, what do you do with it? That's kind of my theme. So those would be the best ways if someone is interested.
Awesome. And Brian, thank you so much for the interview today. It seemed to fly by, which is always a good thing. Love to have you back on the show. Yeah,
cool. Thanks for having me. It was fun to share your story, and hopefully I provide some value to the audience.
Absolutely. And we'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to the Investories podcast. We all have a story. What's yours? The Investories Podcast.